Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Green Tea Podcast. So, today's episode is all about Aquarius. Hello, Aquarius babies. Emma, you're an Aquarius.
I am, yes. That's right. My birthday was on January 28th. So it is my season. Not my season, it's our season. But yep.
All right. So I personally don't know much about Aquarius, but I know it is all about visionary, innovative, unconventional, independent, humanitarian. There's so many themes around Aquarius. I cannot wait for us to get into it. But I guess today, the main topic we're going to be talking about today is humanitarianism because a lot has been going on in this world from the start of 2025. And I guess there is something to do with Aquarius energy that maybe might affect all these big incidents that's been happening around the world. So, Emma, could you dive into the world of Aquarius?
Yes, definitely. So this year, Aquarius season runs from January 19th until around February 18th. Every year, it's about the same dates. And as you so graciously pointed out, yes, all those things are themes of Aquarius. Aquarius is a fixed air sign. It is known for things such as being unconventional, being humanitarian, being innovative. It has two rulers in astrology. Traditionally, it was ruled by Saturn, which is the same planet that rules the sign of Capricorn, which comes ironically right before Aquarius in like the calendar.
Mm.
So the first ruler is Saturn traditionally, and that suggests themes like structure and logic, strategy, ambition, things like that. But it has a modern ruler of Uranus, and Uranus is where you inject a little bit of that. Oh, Aquarius, I have a ring. I almost flicked the camera off. I have a ring that has the Aquarius symbol on it too,
Oh,
actually,
okay.
by the way. But the modern ruler Uranus is all about disrupting the status quo, sudden unexpected changes. It's everything that's unconventional, everything rebellious, things like that. So that's the general gist of Aquarius, and I think that humanitarianism is a really great way to kind of talk about important things in the world, but also stick to the themes of this sign. So I'm excited to get into this.
It's interesting because you said Aquarius has a theme of rebellion, but also it's big on humanitarianism. How does those two relate?
Yeah, so generally speaking, humanitarianism is kind of this idea of doing things for the greater good of humanity. Thinking about humanity as a large collective versus an individual. Rebellion is, I think, an act that is looked upon with confusion, right? Because you would think that rebellion, like you said, like you're kind of implying that the two wouldn't go together. But sometimes the idea with Aquarius is that sometimes you have to instigate change that is unexpected and uncomfortable in order to let something else that is better for humanity come to fruition. Aquarius generally has their finger on the pulse, if you will, of the type of change that is necessary to progress humanity forward. So it is a future focused sign. It is thinking from the lens of how can we create a world where everybody is treated with love and kindness regardless of many things, regardless of like whether or not they're disabled or their race or their sexual orientation or where like they come from. You know what I mean? Aquarius is the sign that sees, like I said, the humanity in all of us, despite kind of those labels. Like Aquarius rules everything that's paradoxical in humans and in life. So paradoxical meaning things that seem to contradict one another or that seem to like not really kind of make sense. So if you attribute that to the themes and qualities of Aquarius, they are known to be people who are, very innovative and very intellectual. They think often, if you will, outside the box. And are great at generating like future focused progressive solutions specifically around social change. However, there is also a part of them that is like a bit watery in nature, and they do, I think, carry a certain sensitivity that people might overlook because they're pinned as, an air sign. So they think, oh, these people don't really, whatever. With that said, Aquarius has qualities of being very like they can be very emotionally detached and like very mental about things, but they also can be very emotional people. And sometimes part of the reason that they can be so in their head about things and so logical is because the emotions of everything are quite overwhelming for them, or just things that they haven't learned how to kind of process, and so they go kind of into their head to figure that out. There's like a compartmentalization that happens between their emotions and their brain, their mind. So yeah, it's complicated already. I know.
Yeah, maybe that's why it was hard for me to even understand
Yeah.
Aquarius, which I told Emma, I was like, I don't understand Aquarius. Like I was reading the notes you gave me and like it's one of the signs where it didn't have like a major theme for me because it was like a lot of things. And maybe like you said, it's contradicting each other,
Yeah.
which is interesting. And Aquarius starts in January, so maybe it's all meant to be as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It actually, if you don't mind me adding it, it makes me think
Hmm.
of like a really good example of this kind of paradoxical nature is Aquarius represents simultaneously like freedom and responsibility. And you can see how those two things you might kind of be like, how does that
Mm,
really fit? Because we live in a world where we're taught that things exist in a binary or there's only this versus that and not multiple perspectives under one umbrella. So kind of what I was saying before about Saturn and Uranus. Saturn is that planet that's more structured. It's got Capricorn up in there and it's all about like this responsibility factor, right? Duty, responsibility, discipline. But then Uranus is the side that rules more of that like freedom loving,
mm,
like unshackled from external control, and advocates for like self governance and not having someone to answer to like Saturn does. So you can see that as like a really good example of that kind of conflict that
mm,
seems like it wouldn't really make sense. Um, but it can. Yeah.
got it. I think you've also told me that I personally have Saturn in Aquarius. What would that exactly mean?
Yeah, so Saturn, like I said, it's this planet of like authority, duty, discipline. When you're interpreting it in astrology, most times
Mm,
people would read that as a karmic area that you're looking to learn some lessons. So Saturn in
mm,
Aquarius would be learning the lessons, if you will, of Aquarius. So some common things could be, and of course this depends on which house this is placed in your chart as well. Um, some common things might be learning the lesson of, how do I learn to become more not so detached, like you might have a tendency to naturally like be less emotional than perhaps other people are, and you think of things very logically. You might have some really great ideas and put a lot of emphasis on ideas over like close emotional connection, which is, there's nothing wrong with that inherently, but at times it can create an imbalance, where it
mm,
seems like, okay, we're very friendly and things are friendly here, but there's a distance and like a connection that's missing from like the heart and from the emotional space. It could also be learning to step outside the need to kind of answer to an authority, or feel like you need to ask permission, or you're waiting for some type of like authoritative permission to do something, and stepping into your own ability to push your ideas forward and to share what you have to share. Um, the opposite of that, though, depending on like again how it's aspected in your chart, is some people with Saturn and Aquarius are born with this really strong rebellious streak, and they like are constantly questioning authority, and they're constantly kind of creating a little bit of chaos and almost like anarchy in a way that is sure rebellious, but not necessarily responsible, if you will. I'm sure maybe you've heard the phrase like being a rebel without a cause. And that's kind of the idea of like pushing against something, but not for any particular reason to reach a solution or to reach a certain common ground, but just to rebel because you feel some type of way about it, which can create a certain amount of chaos, that can disrupt like humanity and can disrupt society, and we don't always think about that. So those are some things that you might need to work through, as well as Aquarius is also known to be a bit of like a misfit energy.
mm,
It grows up maybe feeling like it doesn't really fit in, or it doesn't really belong, or it just takes time to find that group of people or the things that really matter to it and that feel like it gives it a sense of purpose. So that might be something that you feel also is like yeah, that feeling of like, where do I really belong, and what does belonging really look like to me. I think I could be wrong, but I think that you have Saturn in the fourth house, so that is the house of like home and family. So you might be experiencing some of these lessons as they tie to your family. So maybe you grew up in a family that was more like a more dutiful and disciplined, but not very emotional. You might have grown up with parents or family members that you feel like you have more of like a friendliness with versus like a close, loving parent relationship with. Um, so things like that, and I don't want to keep beating a dead horse here, but I think you kind of get where I'm going with that.
Yeah, I think all Asians probably have that in their fourth house.
Yeah, for real. There's probably some themes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I put into a astrology site about, all my information about astrology, and it's
Sure.
interesting because it says that I have no water signs in my inner planetary system,
Right.
which probably is the reason why I'm pretty unemotional with a lot of things. So it's so interesting how
Yeah.
astrology, the more we get into it, just like makes sense.
Yeah.
So to get into the humanitarian topic of Aquarius, I know a lot have been going on in the world, especially in the US where we live today. We've, heard a lot about, the immigration system where a lot of illegal immigrants are being deported, the mass deportation. I think that's kind of humanitarian, topic, right?
Yeah.
Also a lot of plane crashes that I've been hearing everywhere, tariffs, and, I think things are really stirring up in 2025. So do you think that has to do with the Aquarius energy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always very careful when I'm speaking about astrology because I want to reiterate to everybody listening and anybody who ever comes across anything that I say about astrology that I don't necessarily believe that like astrology makes things happen in the world, but I think that what is happening in the world is often reflected in the chart and kind of like vice
Mm,
versa. So with that said, like yes and no is the answer I guess to your question. Um I think it is rather auspicious that, Pluto just moved into Aquarius like a few months like back. And Pluto is all about exposing truths and like transforming patterns and cycles closing, like certain things closing and another thing opening. Obviously, very literally in January, here in the States, we had like the closing of one cycle of a presidency and the opening of a new one. President Trump is now in office, and that was like a whole thing that happened this month. What I find interesting, particularly right now, is if you look at the way that current world events are unfolding, with like you said, migrants, DEI, all these things is going on with the airplanes. Even the case of Luigi, I can't, I
mm,
don't know his last name. Just
Mangione,
blanking.
Luigi Mangione.
Thank you. Who has assassinated the United Healthcare CEO. That is a really, I think, good example of Pluto in Aquarius, or just kind of Aquarius in general, because the concept of Aquarius is change for the better that favors the people.
Mm,
Um, and and Capricorn is where we just came from. Pluto and Capricorn, and now we're in Pluto and Aquarius. Capricorn is all about systems and hierarchy and answering to someone who has power and authority. In the States, at least, I can't speak for other places, there is a lot of question around like the ethics behind insurance companies, for example. And many people are left at the mercy of what this governing or authoritative body, this insurance agency, says and it allows. So somebody like Luigi, a citizen of just whatever, just kind of taking the power into his own hands to try to enforce some type of change with that is very Aquarian. It's like I said, it's rebelling against a broken system or a system that's no longer working for the majority of people, and kind of like demanding change. And unfortunately, not every rebellion, by the way, has to come through an assassination, but many times we will see that that's kind of what ends up happening because it's one of the only ways to finally get people to realize that this is severe, and that, hey, we can't just keep pretending like everything is fine here. Like something really serious ends up happening for people to be like, okay, we have to give this our attention. Um, so yeah, yeah.
yeah. If you guys know, also in South Korea, I do a lot of current events in South Korea. I'm sure you guys have heard about how the current South Korean president is in jail right now and he's getting in trial and he's still the current
Mm,
president, although he is technically been just suspended. But he's called martial law, I think, in December or
wow.
November of last year. And that's the reason why he is going on trial. So a lot of people are protesting, and to put a president in jail, the current president in jail, that's also a crazy news. And the political system in Korea is completely in shatters right now. So I
Wow.
just think that that's all interesting how we're in this Aquarian theme of putting down the authority that you don't believe
Right.
should be in power anymore. So, Emma, you as a person, right? Do you feel like you also want to work for the greater good? Because I think I told you, for me being a Gemini, Libra rising, again, I don't know, I'm not blaming astrology, but I personally never thought in a humanitarian way. Like, I like to help my
Oh,
friends and family, but when I'm
interesting.
doing my career, I'm not thinking, ooh, greater good for the humanity and planetary, you know? It would be
Yeah,
great, but I've never
sure.
like operated that way, if you know what I mean. So I'm wondering if
Yeah.
you have a dream to work for the people, you know?
Wow. Wow, that is so. First of all, I just have to say that's so interesting. And I absolutely love that you just said that because I didn't know that about you. Um, to answer your question, yes. I think my whole life, I have always felt like life is bigger than me. And what I do in the world, I hope always that it somehow serves humanity. I would actually even go so far as to say part of the reason why I have experienced maybe certain struggles in my life is because I have felt like I have the weight of humanity on my shoulders and I am always questioning. Maybe not so much now, obviously, but especially when I was younger, I was always questioning, like, is this right? Like, is this the right thing to do? Like, is this going to hurt everybody if I do this? Or like, how can I make the right choice that benefits the collective? And
Mm,
I want to make it really clear that I think you can be of service to humanity in many, many ways. Even as like an entertainer, whether you're an actor, a content creator, a musician, whatever, you can still do that in a way that is of service to humanity. Like music and film are some of the greatest, like just to give an example, right? The greatest forms of art, the greatest escape, the greatest soul, like enacting thing that we have in the world. Like it's very valuable to do that type of stuff. So I also want to kind of put that out there too, that many things that we do in life, even if they it can seem self-serving, can also be for the greater good of others. But um but yeah, I was going to say though, even on a small scale, I think I'm always thinking from that perspective of like, how can everybody be involved? And
mm,
I wanted to also add that Aquarius, in addition to ruling, um being this humanitarian archetype, it also rules the collective, teams, groups. So I have noticed that when I work places and I have teams, I really enjoy working places where I can experience this kind of, like we talked about, this weird paradoxical thing where I am like my own individual. I can do my own thing at work, but I work with a group of people who also kind of do their own thing. We share our ideas and, we take responsibility for our own stuff, but we also have to work together. And I find that whenever I do work in groups, I'm always trying to think about how, whether it say that it's like, a tip out or something, like how can this be arranged so that everybody is paid fairly, or
mm,
everybody, it's worth it for everybody to be here. And it's not just like one person or one group or one role that's getting all of the money, but then everyone else is here like wasting their time. They're not getting paid. That's horrible. We're all working and doing the same thing. Everybody should be paid accordingly. So
mm.
yes, sorry, that was kind of a medium length answer to a short question, but yeah, I've always felt that way for sure.
Interesting, interesting.
Yeah.
Because I do not operate that way. So I'm like, wow. Okay. So again, is this something related to our personality and astrology? Another checklist to feeling like astrology is real to a certain
Yeah.
degree.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting too because I know that we just talked about how you have Saturn in Aquarius, and so it's also possible that like one of the things that you're kind of learning and coming into is taking that next step into like, how can I also do things that are
Mm,
humanitarian in nature? The beauty of astrology is that it will show us that all of us contain multitudes, and it's our unique astrology that's here to kind of bring something great to the world. Like, even to just give you an example, kind of what I was saying before about performance. um Everything that you do with art, or even the things that you do with your YouTube channel and shedding light on important cases that are kind of happening in Korea, like, that's super super valuable, and you might not consider that something that you're doing intentionally to be of service to other people, but I'm sure that if you were to survey or ask like every single person that's ever looked at your videos, they would feel like, oh yeah, like I find value or benefit in this person doing this, and I've learned something that helps me become a better person, or helps me see the world in a new way, or whatever the case might be. So yeah, I feel
mm.
like we still shouldn't discount discount that, you know?
Yeah, I actually been feeling so grateful because I actually took a break with Grazy TV, true crime, because I was kind of getting burnt
Mm,
out and I was
mm,
focusing on short format content. And I just
cool.
felt this urge and like excitement to start Grazy TV again.
Nice.
And ironically, this year I've just been feeling super not rebellious, but very fire signy. Like I
Mm,
was like, I am not gonna stand back anymore. If anybody F's me over or does me wrong, or to other people that I see that they're being wronged, I'm like, let's expose them. Let's not in a bad way, but like
yeah.
let's like talk about it.
Talk
Let's
about
talk
it.
about the truth and let's
Mm,
like let the people who deserve justice get justice and people who deserve karma and punishment get it. And I used to be
mm.
this very laid back, like, oh no, maybe like they all have a right and wrong and story, but no, like you deserve to be called out. And I have this like super fire in me, like this year. Let's watch out, guys, because Grace is not gonna be nice anymore. Like I feel it.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's so awesome, and that's super on brand with like Aquarius season. But you know, so at some point the sun is going to pass your Saturn, so it'll be activating that feeling and that Aquarian nature. And I know that obviously you're Sun and Mercury in Gemini, and then you have Moon and Mars and Aries. Actually, you have Venus in Gemini also. So everything in your personal planets are Gemini and Aries, and both of those form positive aspects with Aquarius. So like your whole chart in the inner planet section and Saturn is probably getting like lit up right now and activated. So there is an element of um Aquarius involved, but there's also Gemini getting involved, which is like speaking the truth about things. And I know that you have the Sun and Mercury and maybe Venus also in the eighth house, which is all about exposing things, kind of like you just said. So using your voice to expose things. And Aries is all about being a pioneer. It's taking action. It's not being afraid to be bold and courageous and fearless and like, fuck what everybody thinks. You know what I mean? Here I am, like loud and proud, you know? So that makes total sense to me, at least, that that's happening for you. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I love that you're feeling that, you know, because I
Mm,
think that we do need that in the world right now.
nice. All right. So I guess like every sign, I do want to ask you, can you
Yeah.
shortly describe romantic wise, what is Aquarius women like and men like?
Hmm. Interesting. So
You're
you
Aquarius women,
asking,
so.
yeah, like, you asking that question is actually making me realize that I don't generally look at the signs from the angle of like men versus women in terms of like the qualities that are different about them, but I
Mm,
will try and see what happens. Um, Generally, I find that like people in general who are Aquarius tend to be a bit eccentric. They are usually very intelligent people. I mean, I'm kidding, but like, no. I'm not thinking of me. I'm thinking of the people that I know also that are Aquarius. They're super intelligent, but have a tendency to be a little bit misunderstood because the way that they think about the world and see the world is a little bit unconventional. It can be a little bit non-traditional. Um, in relationships, I find that Aquarius people can be a little bit emotionally, like I mentioned earlier, emotionally distant,
oh.
very friendly people. And they have the capacity, I think, to get along with um, others of all backgrounds, of all, you know, whatever. But when it comes to creating like a close emotional connection, there can be a lot of like loving people at arm's length. I say that from experience, but also in what I've seen with other
Mm,
people. And I notice that a lot with both men and women. There can be this energy of like a non-committal here and
mm,
there, or not. By the way, I'm not trying to say that that's the same for every Aquarius, but they tend to be that way. They tend to be people who really value having friendship as a pillar of relationships. Personally, I can attest to that. I feel like my best relationships have always been with people with whom I have some type of friendship with first. You know, there's a like mindedness and an ability to connect on a very platonic level before it gets to be romantic. And I think that is kind of mirrored in what I was saying about Aquarius being kind of like emotionally detached. Um, they don't want to be smothered. They want to have the freedom. They don't like the feeling of being tied down, if you will. So starting with friendship, I think is what create like it starts this like mental connection, this platonic connection that helps them feel more trusting of say taking it to that level of like emotions being really heavily involved. um I'm trying to think of like what else.
Like if I went on a hinge date and I was like, Emma, I met an Aquarius man, what would he be like? Like, is he emotionally, caring? I don't know.
I think that it depends on the rest of the person's chart, but I
Yeah.
would say he's probably intelligent or makes you at
Mm.
least think, or like you can probably engage in some type of interesting conversation with this person. They might be into, whether it's humanitarian pursuits or not, they might really understand like collective dynamics really well. They might have an interest in things like doing volunteer work or nonprofit stuff, or also even like tech fields, social media, things like
Mm.
that. I only say that because Aquarius does rule the house of like technology and kind of social media, really. But I think I don't know, I think it's really hard to describe in terms of like surface level tangible things like that. I think it's more of just the energy of somebody. They might be rebellious. They might have strong opinions that you feel like come out of left field. And they might be a bit, I don't want to say stubborn about it, but they might be very like persistent
Mm.
about like this is what I feel about this, or like this is the unconventional or unpopular opinion that I have and I'm sticking to it, you know? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. First of all, I feel like I should be asking you this. Have you ever been on a date with an Aquarius man and what was he like?
Yeah, I
That's the
think
question I should be
this is
asking.
so funny, guys, as you guys are all watching. I'm literally texting Emma every time. I'm like, he was Aquarius, he was this and that. So once I went on one meeting, one hinge date meeting,
Mm.
with somebody else Aquarius. And obviously we don't know his entire chart. We're only seeing his main sign. But I was like, I wasn't physically attracted to him, but I was actually the most intellectually attracted to him
Mm.
out of anybody that I went on a date. So I Aquarius. So he was we had the best, like, out of the world talks. You know me, I love talks about alien, world, space, afterlife, past life. And he was just like bouncing the conversation off really well out of anybody that I've met. So
Mm.
intellectually, I was so attracted. I was like, wow, this is one of the qualities that I would want in my future husband. Again, there's a lot of factors when it comes to dating, physical attraction and other things that I don't think it worked out, but I was like, I'm starting to like Aquarius, man. If they're all like this, of course.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so funny. Yeah, that makes sense. They're definitely, I mean, me too. I love a conversation. I can talk for hours and like wherever it's going, I'm ready. Like I'm just like, yeah, let's all the
Yeah.
things. And like the weirder the better. That's what I was saying about kind of like eccentric and unique or just different. Like the weirder the conversation or the like weirder stuff we're talking about, the more I'm like, yes, I have to be part of this
Yeah.
conversation. So yeah, kind of like you said, like afterlife and space and like the universe and like theorizing about life is very much like a thing that I think Aquarius people enjoy. And the other thing too is Aquarius has this like ability, I think, to step outside of itself when it analyzes things. So for example, like when I'm going through it and I'm like, I need to like journal this out or whatever. What I do in my journal is I will write on one, like on the left side, on the left, like if I have the book open on the left side, I'll write like journal about how I'm feeling. And then I'll flip the page and I'll only write on the left side of the pages. And then what I'll do is I'll go back and on the right side, I will read what I wrote and then I will analyze it as if I'm looking at it from the third person. So, for example, I might write on the left side, like, oh, I feel hurt by this thing that this person did. And I feel like, they don't care about me. And why is it that, da 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 da, whatever. And then on the right side, I'll go back and it'll be notes. Like, I'll put notes in, like, oh, person feels unappreciated. Or like, person, like, I'm realizing that, like, there's like a lack of boundaries. It's like looking at it, like, and analyzing it. And that part, that analysis is kind of like a strength that I believe if you had to choose in my chart somewhere where it came from, it would be Aquarius. It's the ability to like detach yourself emotionally from what is happening and look at it solely from like an objective and analytical perspective. I also have noticed that one of the strengths of Aquarius is the ability to um sorry, I lost my train of thought, is
Hmm.
the ability to the fuck was I gonna say? I don't know. It was something similar though. If it comes back to me, I'll mention
Yeah.
it.
When you said Aquariuses are kind of non-detachment, I remember you sent me a photo as you were walking on the street,
Mm.
and it was an Equinox ad that said commit to something.
Mm. Yes, 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 yes.
So yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, I think Aquarius can be a little bit flighty at times. Like they're just wee, like bouncing around like from here to there, everywhere, whatever. And commitment can sometimes be like a hard thing to come by. Although I will say that I mentioned this at the beginning. Aquarius is a fixed sign as well. So fixed signs are Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius. And any sign that is a fixed sign, it it has actually a tendency and a desire to remain relatively fixed. So it kind of cuts out a little bit of that like freedom loving, freedom seeking type of boundlessness. Um, even in a sign like Aquarius. So I think, yeah, there can be moments where, for example, commitment is a hard thing for me to come by, but at the same time, if I'm really interested in something, I become like almost like obsessive about it. Like and you cannot pull me away from it no matter how hard you try. So I again with this whole paradoxical like kind of conflicting nature, I think that that's one of the qualities of Aquarius as well. Is that they can definitely struggle to commit and show interest, especially like I noticed I've gotten better at this now. Maybe you can relate to this as a Gemini, but especially when I was younger, dude, like if I was in a conversation and it wasn't interesting to me, I would have to fight so hard to like pay attention because I'm having like so many other thoughts in my head that I'm like, oh, and like more interesting things that I'm thinking about. And then I'm like, fuck, like pay attention, Emma. Like, what are they saying? Like, listen, you know,
I do that
which
all the
I notice.
time.
Yeah, yeah. Right, right.
All right, I guess to wrap the episode up, what is one thing that we can learn and take away from the Aquarius elements and use it in all of our signs? Everyone that's watching.
Aquarius is the part of us that recognizes that we are also a part of something larger. So it's like the idea that we are all a star in the sky. We all are our own star in the sky, which is Leo, the individual. But Aquarius is the part of us that understands like we are our own star in the sky, but there are also hundreds and thousands and millions of other stars, which are other people. And all of us are valuable. All of us are unique. All of us have something special that we can offer the world. And instead of getting into this place where we're like pitting each other against each other and like discriminating and like causing harm and da 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 and competing, we look at it like, yo, brother, humanity, like other star, like shine bright, do your thing, and how can we all create a world where that is like that's possible for everybody. So I think maybe, if you will, like the tip that I'm looking to give people is to understand that your individuality, which is very much an Aquarian thing, or your originality as it pertains to individuality, it will not isolate you. It shouldn't isolate you. It's something that can be integrated into the collective, like for mutual growth. So if you are somebody who you feel like you have weird interests, or you don't know how this is going to fit into like the larger scheme of like the world, don't worry about that so much. Just do it. Just give it.
Yeah. Amazing. All right. Well, that was an episode on Aquarius. Thank you guys so much for watching. And next episode, I think we will be on Pisces.
Yeah.
All right. Well, see you guys next time.
Can't get no sleep.